It's bath time. Your baby loved bath time last week. Kicked the water, smiled, could stay there forever. You thought you finally found something that worked. Today? 2 minutes in and they're done. Crying to get out. Done. Yesterday it was the song that always calmed them down. The one you sang 100 times. Suddenly it doesn't work anymore. They turn their head away like they've never heard it before. And the week before that, the toy. The one that kept them busy long enough for you to eat something. Gone. Zero interest. It doesn't exist. You keep finding things that work, and they keep stopping working. And somewhere between the bath and the song and the toy, a thought started creeping in. Maybe something is off. Maybe they're too demanding. Maybe they're just a difficult baby. Here's what nobody told you. Researchers who study gifted children, children who test in the top percentiles of cognitive ability, went back and asked their parents to describe them as babies. The same words came up, over and over. Restless, demanding, hard to satisfy, needed constant novelty. Nothing was ever enough. The baby most parents describe as difficult is statistically the baby most likely to be gifted, and the signs were there the whole time, silent, invisible to anyone who didn't know what they were looking at. This video is about those signs, what they look like, what they mean, and why the baby that's been exhausting you might be doing something extraordinary right now in ways you can't yet see. 1. The sign nobody recognizes. Let's start with what everyone gets wrong. When most people picture a gifted baby, they picture something obvious. A baby who talks at 6 months, who walks before anyone else in the playgroup, who does something dramatic and early that makes every adult in the room stop and stare. That's not what the research describes. The real signal is quieter than that. So quiet that most parents not only miss it, they actively worry about it. Here's what it actually looks like. Your baby sees something new, locks onto it immediately, studies it with an intensity that almost feels adult, and then, faster than you'd expect, looks away. Done. Ready for the next thing. That's it. That's the signal. Researchers call it habituation. The speed at which a baby's brain processes a new stimulus, encodes it into memory, and moves on. And in 2004, a researcher named Kavshek published a meta-analysis, a study of studies, that compiled decades of research on this exact behavior. The finding was clear. Babies who habituate faster in infancy score significantly higher on cognitive tests in childhood and adolescence. The correlation held stable across every age group tested. It wasn't a phase. It wasn't random. It was a pattern that followed these children all the way through development. A separate meta-analysis by McCall and Carragher found a median correlation of 45 between infant habituation speed and later IQ. To put that in perspective, that's stronger than almost any other early predictor researchers have ever identified. And what does fast habituation look like in real life? It looks like the bath that worked perfectly last week and today gets rejected after 2 minutes. The song that calmed them down every night until suddenly it didn't. The toy that bought you 20 minutes of peace and now gets pushed away immediately. You keep finding things that work, and they keep stopping working. Faster than makes any sense. That's not a difficult baby. That's a fast brain finishing before everything around it can keep up. Now, here's what I want you to do. Think about your baby right now, and tell me in the comments, what's the one thing that used to work and suddenly stopped? The song, the toy, the routine, because I have a feeling every mother watching this has the exact same answer. The baby everyone called difficult, the baby who never seemed satisfied with anything. That baby wasn't lacking something. That baby's brain was finishing before everyone else even started. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable, because the research doesn't stop there. And the next finding is the one that changes everything about how you see those first months. 2. The brain that gets bored first. Think about what actually happens inside your baby's brain when they see something new. The moment a new stimulus appears, a new toy, a new face, a new sound, millions of neurons fire simultaneously. The brain starts working, processing, building a representation of what it's looking at, storing it, filing it away. For most babies, that process takes time, which is why they can look at the same toy for 20 minutes without losing interest. They're still building the file. For some babies, the file gets built in minutes, and the moment it's complete, the moment the brain has fully captured and stored what it's looking at, the interest disappears. Not because the baby is distracted, because the baby is done. A study published in Developmental Science in 2024 looked specifically at what drives this difference, and they found two factors that separate fast habituators from slow ones. Processing speed, how quickly the brain encodes new information, and curiosity, the drive to seek novelty the moment the current stimulus is fully processed. Gifted babies score high on both. They process fast, and the moment they're done, curiosity pushes them straight toward the next thing. Now picture what that looks like from the outside. You hand your baby something new. They study it intensely for 2 minutes. Then they look away and start fussing. You think something is wrong. You think you're failing at something. What actually happened is that your baby's brain completed in 2 minutes what takes another baby 20. And it's been happening every single day, in every bath, every song, every routine that suddenly stopped working. Your baby wasn't rejecting those things. Your baby was finishing them. How old was your baby when you first noticed this? When things started losing their effect faster than they should? Drop just the age in the comments. I want to see when this pattern starts showing up. Because what researchers found when they followed these babies forward is something nobody expected. And it's the part that changes everything. 3. The baby most parents misread. Here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Because the babies most likely to show these signs, the fast processors, the ones with brains running ahead of everything around them, are also the babies most likely to be completely misread by everyone in their life, including their own mothers. And it's not anyone's fault. It's because the signs don't look like intelligence. They look like problems. Take emotional sensitivity. Gifted babies cry when the environment changes. They get upset at sounds that don't bother other babies. They pick up on tension in the room, your stress, your tiredness, the tone of a conversation happening across the house. And they react to it. Visibly, intensely. Most people call this being too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive. What's actually happening is that their nervous system is picking up information that other babies filter out. They're not overreacting. They're processing more. Then there's the sleep issue. Some of these babies simply don't need as much sleep as the books say they should. They resist naps. They fight bedtime. They seem wired at hours when every other baby is out cold. And the mother who has been trying every routine, every method, every piece of advice, is being told by everyone around her that she's doing something wrong. She's not doing anything wrong. Her baby's brain is running so fast that it needs less downtime to recover. And then there's the one that surprises people most. These babies prefer older company. Other babies their age don't hold their interest. The playgroup, the nursery, the other infants on the mat, none of it engages them the way an adult conversation does, the way an older child moving around the room does, the way you do when you're fully present and talking to them like they understand. Because on some level, they do. The baby most likely to be described as intense, exhausting, too much to handle, is statistically the same baby most likely to test as gifted 3 years later. The problem was never the baby. The problem was that nobody knew what they were looking at. But there's one sign that researchers consider the clearest of all, the one that shows up earliest, the one that 94% of profoundly gifted children had in common as babies, and almost no one is looking for it. 4. The quiet observer. In 1997, researchers Linda Rogers and Linda Silverman did something nobody had done before. They went back to the parents of profoundly gifted children, children who had tested with IQs between 160 and 237 on the Stanford-Binet scale, and asked them a simple question: what was your child like as a baby? 94% of those parents used the same word: alert. Not loud, not dramatic, not obviously precocious. Alert. They described babies who were unusually still in busy environments, who seemed to be watching everything without reacting to anything, who could sit quietly in a room full of activity and just absorb it. Eyes moving, taking it all in, missing nothing. From the outside, these babies looked passive, easy even. The kind of baby people describe as so calm or so good. But something very different was happening underneath that stillness. That baby wasn't zoning out. That baby was working. Every face in the room, every sound, every shift in light, every change in tone, every movement in their peripheral vision, being cataloged, processed, filed, at a speed and depth that other babies simply weren't operating at. Researchers call this unusual alertness, and it is one of the earliest and most consistent markers of exceptional cognitive development ever documented. But here's what makes it so easy to miss. It doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't cry for attention. It doesn't do anything that makes you stop and think, wait, is my baby extraordinary? It just watches, quietly, patiently, completely. And while everyone in the room is focused on the louder baby, the fussier baby, the baby doing something obvious and early and impressive, this baby is sitting in the corner of the room building a model of the entire world. Think about the babies you know. The one nobody talks about at the playgroup because they're not doing anything remarkable. The one who just sits and watches while everyone else is performing. That baby might be the most interesting one in the room. And nobody knows it yet. But here's the part that makes all of this urgent. Because these signs, the fast habituation, the emotional sensitivity, the quiet observation, they only matter if someone acts on them. And the window to act is shorter than most parents realize. For the window that closes. There's something researchers agree on that almost never makes it into parenting conversations. The brain your baby has right now, in these first months, in these first years, will never be this plastic again. Never. Before the age of 5, the human brain is building synaptic connections at a speed that is simply impossible to replicate later in life. Millions of connections forming every single day. Languages being wired in. Emotional patterns being set. The architecture of how that brain will process the world for the rest of its life being laid down. Quietly, invisibly, right now. And here's what most parents don't know. Every time you talk to your baby, a connection forms. Every time you respond to their cry, a connection strengthens. Every time you introduce something new, a sound, a texture, a word, a face, the brain reaches out, grabs it, and builds something with it. And every time that doesn't happen, every time the environment is flat, repetitive, unstimulating, a connection that could have formed doesn't. Synapses that get used strengthen. They become permanent. They become the foundation. Synapses that don't get used die. Not metaphorically, literally. The brain prunes what it doesn't need. And once that pruning happens, once that window closes, the opportunity doesn't come back the same way. The brain can still learn, but it will never again learn this fast, this deep, this permanently. Researchers White and Watts found that children who showed exceptional early potential, fast processors, unusually alert, highly sensitive, but who grew up in environments with limited stimulation, frequently never reached that potential. Not because the potential disappeared, because the window closed before anyone opened it. They got called late bloomers, but many of them weren't late bloomers at all. They were early signals that nobody knew how to read. Babies whose hunger went unanswered long enough that the brain stopped asking. And this is the part I need you to sit with. Because this video was never really about identifying whether your baby is gifted. Labels come later, tests come later. None of that matters right now. What matters right now is simpler than any of that. That baby who gets bored faster than you can keep up with. Who cries when the room gets tense. Who stares at everything with an intensity that makes you wonder what they're thinking. Who fights sleep and rejects routines and seems to need more than you know how to give. That baby is telling you something. They are telling you that their brain is hungry, that it is ready, that it is waiting for something to meet it where it is. And you don't need a curriculum for that. You don't need special toys or programs or structured activities. You don't need to be an expert in child development. You just need to show up in a specific way. Talk to them more than you think is necessary. Not baby talk. Real words, real sentences, real conversations. Narrate what you're doing while you cook, while you fold laundry, while you walk from room to room. Read to them before they can understand a single word. Let them watch your face while you speak. Respond when they make sounds, because those sounds are the beginning of language, and every response you give teaches them that communication works. Ask them questions they can't yet answer, because the question itself is the stimulus. The pause after the question is the space where the brain reaches out. Be present in a way that gives their brain something real to process. Because here's what the research is clear on above everything else. The single biggest predictor of cognitive development in the first years of life is not genetics. It's not a test result. It's not any milestone on any chart. It's the quality of interaction between a baby and their caregiver, not the quantity, the quality. 1 hour of full presence, eyes on them, voice engaged, responding to every sound they make, does more for a developing brain than an entire day of passive exposure to toys, screens, and background noise. You are not just their mother. You are the most important learning environment they will ever have. The most sophisticated stimulus their brain will ever encounter. The one input that no toy, no program, no researcher can replicate. And that restless, demanding, impossible to satisfy baby who has been exhausting you since the very first week? They weren't giving you a hard time. They were asking you, in the only language they have, to rise to theirs. And you showed up every single day, even when you didn't know what you were doing, even when nobody told you what it meant. You were answering a hunger you didn't even know existed. Now you know. Tell me in the comments, did any of these signs sound like your baby? Which one stopped you cold? Because I have a feeling this comment section is about to look very different from what most parents expected when they clicked on this video. And if this changed how you see your baby, the next video is about what happens inside a baby's brain the moment they hear your voice. Before they can see your face, before they can understand a single word you're saying. And what researchers found is going to change every conversation you have around that baby from this point forward.